The next quote that I have, an ambient angst pervades our society. There's a sense that somehow there's probably something we should be doing that we're not, which creates a tension for which there is no resolution and from which there is no rest. And basically what this quote says is that a huge cause of stress among people when it comes to organizing themselves is worrying about something they forgot, something that they should be doing. I know that I'm supposed to be doing this today. And this happens to me all the time when I'm not following this program. It happens to me a lot. I'll come to the masjid and there's an appointment that I forgot that somebody was going to, that I promised them. Somebody comes to see me. I had told them a week ago, please just give me a week. I'll see you in a week's time. In a week's time, inshallah, I'll help you with what you need. They come in a week's time. They're like, I've waited a week. I'm like, I completely forgot about you. I forgot. And that stress of just constantly feeling like there's something I forgot, or I need to be doing, or there's a deadline I missed, or there's something that's supposed to be done, it does create a lot of background stress. And you actually feel much more organized if you can relieve that tension. And you can be quite confident that there isn't anything that you have forgotten. Don't get me wrong, there might be many things you chose not to do. For example, I know that brother's going to come to meet me in the masjid today. I know that I promised him I would have his stuff done in a week. But because of more important commitments that I had, I said to him, Akhi, forgive me. I know that I'm supposed to see you and I know I'm supposed to be helping you with something, but I can't do it. So I decided to, you're going to have to give me another week. I wasn't able to do it. But that doesn't create kind of background stress. You might feel awkward about it. You might even have to make istighfar. You might even feel like you let somebody down, but you don't feel that kind of constant headache of worrying that you forgot something that you should be dealing with but aren't. The next quote, most stress they experience comes from inappropriately managed commitments they make or accept. This is another very personal one for me, and it's something I go through a lot. And that is making commitments or accepting commitments that are not reasonable or achievable or manageable. I'm somebody who, and the reason I'm sharing a little bit about myself is just because I think that a lot of people identify with that. I'm a person who feels I find it very, very hard to say no. And there are entire books in the world of productivity, self-help, that are just written just to teach you how to say no, like the book, Just Say No. And as much as I try to train myself to say no to people, taking on board commitments is something which causes a massive amount of stress, which are inappropriately managed. So for example, I'll have it done for you tomorrow. Yes, definitely I can do it. Yeah, sure, no problem, inshallah, just remind me next week. I'm taking on things that I'm actually sinning by taking it on. Now, a person might say, how could you be sinning by taking on a commitment? How could you be sinning by helping somebody out? But if you're making a promise that you know inside you are going to really struggle to keep, or you're making a promise that is going to conflict with a promise you've already made, or you're making a promise which is going to hurt somebody else and cause a bigger problem later on, then that promise is sinful at the end of the day. It's not beneficial. So what I found is that commitments you make to other people are a huge source of stress. And actually, sometimes people get very upset with you when you say no. I'm sorry, how many people come to me for ruqya? Please, can you do ruqya for me? Sorry, akhi, wallah, I would love to be able to do it for you. But really, at this moment in time, I cannot promise you that I can do it in a way that is going to leave you pleased at the end. Rather, I believe what I'm going to do is just going to cause you more problems. So forgive me for that. In the beginning, sometimes I tried saying yes to everybody. I tried saying no to everybody. And I realized neither of those two things really worked. But what I actually tried to do is explain to people why I'm saying no. I'm not saying no because I don't care about your case. I'm not saying no because it's not serious enough. I'm not saying no because I just, I want to spend time relaxing. I'm saying no because I know that is the best thing for you, inshallah, in your situation, is that you don't sit around waiting for me, but instead you take the following steps. And inshallah ta'ala, those will benefit you more than waiting for something that I'm not going to be able to give you. Now that's thinking about commitments as it relates to other people, but actually commitments in the book include everything that you promise yourself. So you yourself promising yourself, I'll finish this tomorrow. Promising yourself the video will be done by next week. Promising yourself, just give me another day. All of those are commitments you made to yourself, commitments you make to your manager at work, commitments you make to your friends, commitments you make to your family. Yeah, by 6 o'clock, I'll be done. We'll spend time together. All of these are commitments. So to be honest, I was speaking about commitments just now as something on the outside. But to be honest with you, commitments are just as much things that you promise yourself. And one of the major themes of the book is that there are times where you need to renegotiate your commitments. Now, that doesn't mean you ring everyone up that you promised to meet next week and say, "Okay, I'm sorry, I can't meet you this week. Can I meet you next week?" Instead, it's about even the things you promised yourself, the deadlines you set for yourself. There are times you need to renegotiate the deadline you made even with yourself and say, this deadline is not realistic for this particular project. I'm no longer going to say to the person, I'll get it done next week or the week after. Instead, I've got, a more realistic commitment that I'm going to make. The next quote that I'm going to bring for you, we need to transform all the stuff we have attracted and accumulated into a clear inventory of meaningful actions, projects, and usable information. So this actually starts to tell you a little bit about how the book works and how the book kind of considers or the basic methodology that is presented. And that is that you have an almost unlimited number of inputs. And in terms of that could be your phone calls, it could be WhatsApp, it could be emails, it could be requests from the manager at work, it could be your family asking to do something, it could be letters, it could be all different kinds of stuff that you accumulate. And I mean, by now, if I just think about my own computer, there's nearly 2 terabytes of junk in iCloud that I have to all do something with it. It's just a massive pile of stuff. Even finding notes for lectures might be hard in all of that because they're everywhere, among books, among recommendations, among videos that I downloaded to watch or lectures that it's just, a great big mess. And that's just one single system. If I then expand that to look at my work commitments, if I expand that to look at my charitable commitments, the masjid that we're involved with, it's just huge. There's a huge amount of stuff that's clawing at your attention. Now, someone might say, well, how is it that 2 terabytes of stuff on iCloud is clawing at your attention? Because it's constantly worrying me in the background that there's something there that I need, that I might delete something that's important, that there might be a book in there that was recommended to me. And when it comes to the time that I open the iPad to teach a class, I can't find the book that I wanted. It's constantly in your head that there might be stuff there that I need. Or when I need it, I can't get it. If I'm talking about, for example, Telegram or emails, there's a constant feeling that somebody asked me something important or sent me some details that I'm just not processing. I'm just forgetting about it. So what do I need to do? In general, I need to divide this stuff into 3 categories. I need to divide it into, first of all, let's talk about usable information. And the idea behind that is I need to divide it into, let's call it like a filing cabinet of stuff that I can find when I need it. Now, usable information doesn't mean that I need to kind of be looking at it all the time or whatever. I just need to know that someone gave me a really good book to read, and I need to know that where that book is when I want it. So that's kind of like your filing cabinet. If you imagine back, probably some of you watching this video have just got no idea what I'm talking about. But if you imagine back in the day where you went into an office and there was a big metal filing cabinet and you had like all the customers whose name begins with A, and all the customers whose name begins with B, and then C, and then D, and you had it all, or you had all your contracts in date order. The point is, it's a collection of useful information. There's nothing in there that's not needed. And it's easy for you to find that information. It's not something you need to do. There's no to-do list associated with it. There's no project that you need to do. It's just a matter of, for example, if you think of it like, how would I store my tax returns or something like that? Or my business accounts, nicely organized in date order with, all the records together, and, the proof for each form is next to it. And you don't need it. You've got nothing to do with it, but you've got it in a place where you can find it and you're sure there's nothing in there that is junk. So it's nicely organized and you're sure that there's nothing in there that's junk. Now, what you'll find is, and what I love about this book, is that could be anything from an actual filing cabinet to an online service like Google Drive or iCloud, to it could be even, like a pile of stuff on your desk. It could even be a bookcase full of books. But the main thing is that you're sure there's nothing there you don't need, and it's nicely organized that you can quickly and easily find what you need in it. So that is usable information. Next thing we're going to talk about are projects. Now, the really interesting thing is, project in the book has a very specific istilah, very specific terminology. Anything that takes more than one step is a project. So obviously you have big projects and very, very small projects. You have a project that might just take you 20 minutes. You have a project that might take you years. But the point is, a project is anything that takes more than one step. And this is so, so useful for people who suffer from procrastination. Because to be honest, if I was to say after dhikr and all of the Islamic stuff, I would say the one sabab that you can do that can save you from procrastination by Allah's grace is to stop bundling actions together and to see that a project is anything that has more than one action in it. So if it requires 2 steps, it's a project. It's not an action. An action is something that requires one single step. That's it, nothing else. One single step is an action. Everything else is a project. Now, you might decide to be a little bit flexible with that. You might have, think that instead of having, 50 million projects, I might, sort of separate that down. But ideally, try that if something has more than one action, especially if it has quite a few actions, don't put it on your actions list. It's a project, not an action. An action is a single step that you take, one single thing that you do. And that's why actions in the book are considered to be things that are one single step that you can do that get you nearer to your project. And it's true. Sometimes you might put something that takes 2 very small steps or something together. But generally speaking, an action is something that is one step that gets you one step further in a particular project. Whereas a project is anything which requires more than one action, particularly if it requires lots of actions. Even if those lots of actions will only take an hour, it's still part of a project.
If you like what you're seeing, then take it to the next level on AMAUacademy.com. We have nearly 100 self-development courses specifically tailored for Muslims, each packed with its own ebook and quiz. You'll get a new course every 2 weeks, so head over now to AMAUacademy.com.